Beyond the darkness. The most beautiful and best things in the world cannot be seen or touched, but they are felt in the heart. Helen Keller.
In 1880, a little girl entered the world in the quiet town of Tuscumbia, brimming with possibilities. This spirited child dashed through the garden, laughing joyfully, exploring her surroundings and forming her first words. Her name was Helen Keller. Yet at the tender age of 19 months, a relentless fever shifted the trajectory of her existence in an unimaginable way. After days of uncertainty where life hung in fragile balance, the fever subsided, leaving behind unimaginable losses. Both sight and hearing vanished. For Helen, life descended into absolute silence and impenetrable darkness. Her mother's voice was replaced by a profound void. Her father's face faded into obscurity. Confounded by the change, Helen's world transformed into an unyielding cell of muted shadows. With time, despair took hold of her soul. She became increasingly agitated, succumbing to frustration, flares of anger, destructive outbursts, and fits of rage. Many people initially believed that the girl would never retain anything truly meaningful or learn effectively. But his family didn't give up. When Helen reached 7 years old, a remarkable teacher by the name of Hans Sullivan came to assist her at home. Having experienced significant vision challenges during her own youth, she deeply empathized with the frustration of facing such limitations. Anne gently held Helen's hand and embarked on an arduous and transformative mission, teaching a child who could neither see nor hear the meaning of words. At first it seemed impossible. Anne would place objects in Helen's hand and then write letters on the palm of her hand. For instance, she would place a doll in Helen's hand and painstakingly spell out DOLL on her palm for clarity. Despite these efforts, Helen was unable to grasp that the traced letters corresponded to everyday items or names. One day the miracle happened. Anne led Helen to a water pump outside the house. As the cold water ran over one hand, Anne wrote on the other, AGUA. Suddenly something clicked in Helen's mind. For the first time she understood that everything had a name. Helen was shocked. She touched the earth, the trees, the stones, and wanted to know what everything was called. That same night she learned dozens of words. It felt like a long locked door had finally opened. Since then, Helen has studied tirelessly. She learned to read Braille, write, and even speak, although she could never hear herself. The girl who many considered incapable went to university, became a writer, lecturer, and a world symbol of perseverance. He traveled to many countries giving messages of hope, and although he lived in silence and darkness, it lit up the lives of millions of people. Someone once asked him, what can be worse than being born blind? To have sight, but not to have vision. And maybe that's the biggest lesson in her story, because Helen Keller showed that the worst chains are not always in the body, but in surrendering within. Limitations do not define a person's destiny. Even in the most profound darkness, hope can persist. It is through God's miraculous power that pathways emerge when others perceive only impossibilities. You, who have fewer limitations than Helen Keller, how easily do you give up in the face of adversity? Take inspiration from stories of courage, and above all, take strength from God. Is it possible that He can transform you into something beyond worldly expectations, exceeding limitations that seem insurmountable?
My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Thus I will joyfully embrace and reflect upon my weaknesses, allowing the unparalleled strength and grace of Christ to resonate profoundly within me.
Generate by